the band, according to band lore, started somewhere around 1991. I joined the band in 1993. So the two people who were there since 91 are Vic, the keyboard player, and Marcus, the bass player. They were part of the original three people that started the Slackers. And I came along in 93. And yeah, when the band started, we rehearsed in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, literally in a rat-infested basement. And we tried to play, a mix of ska, reggae, soul, a little bit of rock and roll, and we've kept on trying to do that. Trying to, we're American kids who grew up on Jamaican music. That's what I grew up listening to when I was a kid, and so that influenced me a lot. And you just try to complete the circles and spread the love. It was something.
How did the reggae music influence you?
It's just, when I was a kid, my dad would blast, Jimmy Cliff and Bob Marley albums. So that's like part of the Peter Tosh Equal Rights albums. Yeah. So it was, the reggae has really been part of my life since I was a little kid. And it's just the heart of it. And, I was listening to all Studio One records, collect Studio 145s, and then I really got into ska with the two-tone movement in the early 1980s, bands like the Beat and the Specials, and that saxophone from the Beat was my first influence, and he made me want to play saxophone.
What is the difference between reggae and ska?
Well, it always gets so muddled because the first, the Jamaican music, like ska, started in 1959, and it really comes out of boogie woogie, and it's sort of like a Jamaican take on boogie woogie. So it sounds very similar, like Roscoe Gordon and Fats Domino and some of the Southern American R&B. And then it sort of formed into ska. It's always been omnivorous. There was Latin influences. A lot of the bass lines in ska had Latin roots, and and jazz was a big part of what they were doing because a lot of the horn players were versed in jazz, and so ska was really the first distinct indigenous music in Jamaica, first genre that they could call their own, that wasn't shared with any other island, and then it started slowing down around 1967. There was the rocksteady started slowing down, and then it kind of morphed. In some ways, it sped up a little bit with reggae because it was the hi-hat was faster, but then it slowed down again, and it's kept being called reggae, but of course we're on the 50th version of it. There's some dance halls and dubs and a million genres out there these days. It just the music keeps evolving, but then ska comes back into the picture with the two-tone movement in England and the ska revival, and so people mix Jamaican ska with rock and roll and with reggae, and now it's just a beautiful mess. It's you can get purist about a moment, but then then musicians, we always mix things. We always grab from here and grab from there.
Could you talk about ska in current music, so to speak? Like reggae today?
Well, I'd just say that the one of the things about ska is that it's gotten so people apply ska to almost any, in the States they start applying it to almost anything with horns, right? That's ska. And it's no, it's really not. It's like some rock and roll with horns, but some people think that's it. But for me, it's does it sound like it has that Jamaican influence in there? And then it's possible for it to be ska. And it's, I think we're a little bit of a revivalist in the sense that you can hear, when we play, you can hear the Scatolites in there, you can hear Toots and the Maytals in there, you can hear the ska stuff. But also, it gets muddled because we also have big reggae influences like Lee Perry and the Upsetters, and Wailers, huge influence. And it's just, so it's always mixing, always. But ska nowadays, you know, it's funny because it always it always has a moment of popularity, you know, just when you think you counted out a new wave will come along, and it's okay, you know. Sometimes people will take it in different directions, and it's all right if it doesn't all sound like something, you know. It's just, you know, music with heart that moves you is, I think, the most important thing.
Tell us about your big hits.
Our big hits. Our big hits. The funny thing with us is that we're like a cult band. We travel around. We have a little bit of following in a lot of places. So the good thing is it means that we can go around and play 80 gigs a year, you know, and visit different friends in different places. But we never had hits that much. The funny one is that our last album was the first time that we charted in Billboard, and so that was in 2022. Our album came out, and we had been together for 31 years, and but Billboard claimed it because it was our first time in the chart. They were like an emerging artist, you know. So that was funny. That was the first time we were in a Billboard chart was then. So you know, it's cool. The Sunlight Fool You. That was the name of the album. And now we got a new single called My Last Star, which we're gonna play in this set coming up. So that one is a tribute and also partially written by a great friend of mine, Greg Lee. He had started writing a song before he passed away, and then we ended up finishing it. So it's like I said, a tribute and a collaboration with my friend.
Say hello to Hawaii.
Hello, Hawaii. Yeah, I love you. It's great being here. 11 years away was far too long. We're happy to be back.
Thank you.
All right.
So I am Jay Nugent, known professionally as Agent Jay. I play guitar for the Slackers, and I joined the band full-time in 2004. But I've been playing on and off with the band since 1994, just a little bit here and there. And I'm the only guitar player. I play mostly rhythm, occasional solo, and we play ska.
Tell us about ska. That's an important topic.
Ska is a Jamaican invention. It's a Jamaican version of rhythm and blues that is derived from Jamaicans listening to mostly American rhythm and blues and making records for themselves that they could play because it was hard and expensive to import American records for the sound systems. So they would play music and they would combine it with the local music like mento and nyabingi and all that stuff, and they came up with kind of their own beat which really accents the offbeat. So it's kind of like that late 50s boogie woogie kind of rhythm and blues, and that was it had a swing to it at first in the late 50s, and by the early 60s, mid 60s, it had almost a very stiff, just very like forceful, aggressive, downbeat kind of style, but the accent was still on the afterbeat.
And ska doesn't have the emphasis on the afterbeat?
Now, yeah, very much so for the rhythm instruments, but a lot of people forget that the bass really kind of carries the downbeat, and that's a very necessary part of ska. So a lot of people who play ska think it's only about the afterbeat, but the downbeat is very important. And you can't forget that. And so you could even take out the skank, the afterbeat, what they call the skank, and it should still be ska. So that's a really important thing that a lot of bands forget. Ska is a form of rhythm and blues where the chordal instruments, guitar, piano, and sometimes the sax, obviously, is a single note instrument. They will emphasize the downbeat, or rather the afterbeat. So it'll kind of have a swing to it, but still the bass really plays the downbeat. And the kick drum of the drums, which is normally on the downbeat, is actually on the afterbeat also. So a lot of Western musical players get confused and they can't hear the beat correctly because the kick is on the afterbeat That, you know, they're used to hearing all that stuff on the downbeat. But the downbeat is very important, even though it's not accented by the instruments.
How would you differentiate ska from reggae? I mean, is it all the same? I mean, how do we?
No, reggae is basically a slower version of ska. So around 1966, as far as the stories went, ska was still the music, but apparently it was a very hot summer, and the musicians in Jamaica started just playing ska just slower because it was just so hot and people didn't want to dance this frantic up-tempo dance. So there was a tune called Take It Easy by, I think, Hopeton Lewis, which is widely regarded as the first rocksteady tune. That's what they call this new music. It was rocksteady. And it's essentially what we kind of recognize as reggae, except it was a mid-60s version, and so it sounds a little older. And rocksteady only really lasted for like a year and a half, maybe till 68. And then they came up with reggae, which, even though it's slower, what we think of as reggae, when it first came out in 68, it actually sounds faster because the beat slowed down, but the instruments they're playing over it, like the organ and guitar, actually doubled time. So it actually sounds more frantic and fast, even though it's actually slower. And that's reggae. That comes in around 68, and by 69, reggae settles down into what we think of as reggae nowadays.
Which is?
I mean, most people think of reggae as like Bob Marley and music like that, and by 69, it's settling into this version of, it's called reggae, but it has a very rocksteady sound, and it is the kind of, the drums are playing what we call a one drop, where the kick is playing, you know, on the 2 and 4 rather than the 1 and 3, and the skanks are playing on the ands, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and that really becomes what a lot of people recognize as roots reggae, which slows down a little bit further into the 70s. It's a fascinating evolution, because every rule I could try and name for reggae, I can come up with probably 10 tunes that break that rule, and you don't question for a second that it's reggae. It's a really fascinating music, the way it evolved.
Can you talk about Bob Marley and how he influenced?
Bob Marley started around 63. He first was singing as a teenager, playing ska, playing for Studio One, which is a big label, which is like the Motown of Jamaican music, also Beverly's Records. And by 66, he started his own label called Whalum Soul, I think, which was, he was playing like rocksteady. And by then he had teamed up with Peter Tosh and Bunny Wailer, and also Beverly Kelso was the fourth Wailer, and they were playing rocksteady. And then at some point he goes to the US and he works in an auto plant in Delaware, and he comes back, I believe 68 or something, when reggae was happening, and he starts working with, and his own label folded by then when he left for America, but he starts working with Lee Perry around 69. And that's, for most Bob Marley lovers, that's the peak years. Whalum Soul, people love that stuff, but also the 69 to 72, when he's working with Lee Perry, those years are really crucial years when it's becoming reggae.